It is 4:59 in the morning, the suburb of North Ryde, Sydney, Australia. A quiet street, nice houses, families asleep. One house belongs to an 85-year-old widower who lives alone. His name is Chris Baghsarian. He has no enemies, no criminal record, no underworld connections. He is, by every account, a gentle, kind man, a grandfather, a devoted father, someone who, according to his family, would never hurt a fly. At exactly 5 a.m., 3 men approach his house. They break in. They drag him from his bed. They gag him. They restrain his hands. And they throw him into a waiting car. Within minutes, he is gone. But here's the thing that makes this case unlike almost anything you have ever heard. They got the wrong man. Welcome to Midcrime. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and share the video. And with that said, let's dive into the video. Today we are covering one of the most disturbing cases out of Australia in recent memory. This is the story of Chris Baghsarian, an 85-year-old grandfather who was ripped from his home in Sydney, allegedly assaulted, held for ransom, and eventually murdered. He had absolutely nothing to do with the criminal world. He was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, and that place was his own bedroom. We are going to go through everything. Who Chris was, the night of the kidnapping, the police response, the ransom demand, the search, and what we know about the people responsible. To understand how devastating this case is, you first need to understand who Chris Baghsarian was. Chris was 85 years old. He was a widower. His wife had passed away, and he was living alone in a house in North Ryde, a suburb on the upper north shore of Sydney. He was of Armenian heritage, born and raised in the Armenian quarter of the old city of Jerusalem. If you know anything about that community, you will know it is one of the most tight-knit, historically rich communities in the world. One of Chris's cousins, writing in the Armenian Weekly after his death, described growing up with him in Jerusalem, sharing mattresses, walking in and out of each other's homes without knocking, living in what he called an idyll that few cities on earth could match. At some point in his life, Chris emigrated to Australia. He became part of Sydney's Armenian community. He had children, grandchildren. His family described him in a statement as, and I want to read this directly because it matters, a devoted father, brother, uncle, and grandfather, deeply loved, gentle, the kindest person they knew. His childhood friend Michael Abrahamian told 10 News, he was such a peaceful man. We are going to miss him a lot. This was not a man involved in crime. He was not connected to any criminal organization. Neither was his family. He was a grandfather who lived alone and needed daily medication. And on the morning of February 13th, 2026, a Friday, his life was taken from him because a group of criminals could not read a street correctly. North Ryde is a residential suburb in Sydney's upper North Shore area. It is the kind of place where families raise kids, retirees walk their dogs, and nothing much happens. Chris lived there alone. His neighbors knew him. One of them, a man named Felix Cho, would turn out to be the person who called the police that night. Now, nearby, on the same street, or very close to it, lived another man. A man who was, according to investigators, linked to serious organized crime in Sydney. Specifically, police later said this man was believed by investigators to be connected to individuals involved in organized crime in Sydney. That man, the actual intended target, was the one the kidnappers were supposed to take. But they went to the wrong house. Think about that for a second. A group of offenders, people who planned this operation, who scouted the area, who had weapons and a getaway car, made a mistake so catastrophic that they grabbed an 85-year-old man who had nothing to do with any of it. Detective Acting Superintendent Andrew Marks, who led the investigation, would later say he was, and these are his words, extremely confident that the kidnappers had the wrong person. Friday, February 13th, 2026. Just after 5 in the morning, CCTV cameras on a nearby home picked up movement on Chris's street. 3 figures, moving quickly, purposefully. They approached the house, broke in. Felix Cho, the neighbor, was woken by the noise. He heard glass smashing, dogs barking, loud sounds coming from Chris's home. He called the police. But by the time officers arrived, it was already over. The 3 men had gagged Chris, restrained his hands with duct tape, dragged him out of his own bedroom, and forced him into a waiting vehicle, parked outside. They drove away into the dark. Within an hour, about 6 a.m., a getaway car was found torched in the nearby suburb of North Turramurra. The criminals were burning their tracks. They had clearly planned this. A separate stolen vehicle was later tracked to a suspected stronghold in Durrell, a semi-rural suburb on the outskirts of Sydney, about 20 kilometers from Chris's home. That property in Durrell, believed to be linked to the suspects. It was where they took Chris, and it was where they began to hurt him. NSW police moved fast. Almost immediately, investigators established something crucial. Chris Baghsarian had no criminal connections. He was not the intended target. This was a case of mistaken identity. And so police made an unusual decision. They went public, repeatedly and directly, speaking to the kidnappers through the media. Detective Acting Superintendent Andrew Marks stood at a press conference and looked into the cameras, and he said something extraordinary. He said, "You have the wrong person." He urged the kidnappers to take Chris to a hospital, or somewhere safe. Just put him somewhere and walk away. He said, "Please release Mr. Baghsarian. Let us know where he is. We are looking to get him the medical assistance and treatment that he requires." He reminded the public and the kidnappers that Chris needed daily medication, that he was elderly, that he was in danger. The family released a statement. They described the situation as surreal. They said, and I want you to hear this, "Our family is living through a nightmare we never thought possible. We are struggling to make sense of the fact that he has been taken, that our family has been caught up in something that has nothing to do with us." That last line, "nothing to do with us." That is the whole tragedy in 7 words. Then the video emerged. The kidnappers sent footage, and what police and the public saw in that footage was deeply disturbing. Chris Baghsarian, an 85-year-old man, was shown tied up inside what appeared to be the abandoned Durrell property. His face was covered. His hands were taped. But there was more. Photos and videos reported by some media outlets suggested he may have suffered serious injuries, though police have not publicly confirmed the full extent. Police confirmed they had seen the footage. Detective Marks said, "We fear for the safety of the hostage, and we think he may have been harmed." The country was horrified. This became front-page news across Australia. And yet, despite all of it, the public appeals, the press conferences, the family's heartbreak broadcast to the nation, the kidnappers did not let him go. Here is where the money comes in. According to screenshots shared on a social media channel that covers Sydney's underworld, the kidnappers sent a ransom demand. The amount they were asking for? Reports suggested the kidnappers were demanding a ransom in the tens of millions of dollars. Now, remember, this demand was directed at the family of the intended target, the person they thought they had grabbed, not Chris's family. Police confirmed that at no point did Chris's actual family receive a ransom demand, because the kidnappers had the wrong person. So let us think about the logic here. These men grabbed someone they believed to be connected to a major Sydney crime family. They planned to hold him hostage and extract tens of millions of dollars, but they grabbed the wrong man. And at some point, it appears they may have realized, or perhaps when they feared they had been identified, instead of releasing him, they did something unforgivable. Let us talk about where Chris was held. Durrell is a suburb on Sydney's northwestern fringe. It is semi-rural, lots of large properties, some bushland, not densely populated. The kind of place where a derelict property could go unnoticed. Police were able to identify the Durrell property as a suspected stronghold, based on the footage the kidnappers had sent. CCTV analysis and GPS route data helped investigators piece together where the car had gone after leaving North Ryde. On February 20th, 7 days after the kidnapping, police searched the Durrell property. But Chris was gone. They had moved him. Detectives then zeroed in on bushland in nearby Glenorrhy, a small township about 19 kilometers from Durrell, even deeper into Sydney's rural outskirts. The search expanded. NSW police, along with the SES, the State Emergency Service, combed through dense bushland. Officers were seen near a national park. The operation was large-scale, and still, for days, there was nothing. 11 days. For 11 days, Chris's family waited. His community prayed. Police searched. The NSW police investigation was run under Strike Force Chobat, named in the way Australian police name their major operations. The Robbery and Serious Crime Squad led it. These are not your everyday detectives. This is a specialized unit that handles exactly this kind of organized criminal activity. Detective Marks kept appearing in press conferences. He kept appealing directly to the kidnappers. He kept urging them to do the right thing, to put Chris somewhere safe. Meanwhile, Chris's cousin wrote about him publicly. He described the life they had shared as children in Jerusalem. He talked about the warmth of that community, the closeness of it, the way everyone was connected. He said Chris was a gentle, amiable family man. There is something particularly painful about reading those words, because they were written in the past tense. His cousin already knew, by the time he wrote them, that Chris was gone. On February 23rd, police focused their search on bushland in Glen Orry. On February 24th, at 8 in the morning, human remains were located. Near a golf course in Pitttown, a small rural town in Sydney's far northwest, about 50 kilometers from where Chris had been taken, police found what they had feared they would find. It was Chris. The confirmation came on February 24th, 2026. 11 days after he had been dragged from his bed, Chris Baghsarian's remains were found near a golf course on the rural outskirts of Sydney. Police confirmed the identification. An autopsy was ordered to determine the exact cause of death. Investigators have not publicly released how Chris died, but the circumstances, the injuries already documented in the video, the fact that his body was dumped in a remote location, paint a deeply disturbing picture. Detective Marks stood in front of cameras again, and this time, the appeal was over. Now it was a murder investigation. He said, "It's somebody's worst nightmare, right?" The fact that an innocent man was taken from his home is not acceptable. Chris's family released another statement. They said this was an extraordinarily distressing time. They asked for space, for privacy, to process what had happened. There are no words for what this family went through. And the cruelest part of all, their father and grandfather did not die because of anything he did, or anyone he knew. He died because of an address. Less than 24 hours after Chris's body was found, police moved. At 6:30 in the morning on Wednesday, February 25th, Strike Force detectives, assisted by the Raptor Squad, which is one of NSW Police's elite anti-gang units, executed 3 search warrants simultaneously. The properties were in Kenthurst, Castle Hill, and Lake Macquarie. Police released footage of the raids. You can see tactical squads and SUVs pulling up to a large suburban home, jumping the fence, hammering on the front door, and then forcing their way in. Inside, a woman can be heard screaming. Officers escort a barefoot, disheveled man to a waiting police van. During the raids, police seized vehicles, electronics, and clothing relevant to their investigation. 2 men, identified in media reports as being aged 24 and 29, were arrested and later charged. Both men were charged with kidnapping and murder. Neither applied for bail. Their cases were adjourned until April 17th. Detective Marks confirmed police believed at least 3 people were involved in the abduction, and that further arrests were expected. Now let us talk about what we know about the suspects and the operation itself. As of the time of filming this video, 2 men are identified in media reports as 2 men aged 24 and 29 have been charged with murder and kidnapping. Both are on remand. Their trial has not yet begun. Police allege that these 2 men, along with others still at large, formed what they are calling a joint criminal enterprise to kidnap a target connected to Sydney's organized crime world. The plan was straightforward in its cruelty. Grab someone close to a powerful figure, make a ransom demand for an enormous amount of money, and wait. But the execution was catastrophically wrong. Instead of the intended target, they grabbed Chris Baghsarian, an innocent man who happened to live on the same street or nearby. Police are still investigating how the mistake happened. But criminologist Clark Jones, a visiting fellow at the Australian National University, made an important point when commenting on this case. He said that in past kidnapping situations in Australia, perpetrators have typically released victims once they realize they have the wrong person. These ones did not. And that decision, whatever motivated it, cost Chris his life. Now let us talk about the bigger picture here, the criminal world that this kidnapping was aimed at. Investigators, according to reporting by the Sydney Morning Herald and the ABC, believe the intended target was a relative of a convicted armed robber and founder of a streetwear brand, a person with links to the Al Medine crime network. Police have long investigated organized crime networks operating in Western Sydney, including groups that have been linked to violence and drug activity. Based in Western Sydney, they are believed by police to have significant influence over parts of Sydney's drug trade. The network has been linked to violence, gang conflicts, and organized crime stretching back years. The syndicate, a group associated with the Al Medines, has reportedly been involved in serious incidents including alleged hits on individuals. Planning a kidnapping for a large ransom. That is not some impulsive crime. That is an organized, targeted attack. Someone with resources and connections planned this operation. The fact that it went so wrong, that they grabbed the wrong man, does not reduce the seriousness of the planning that went into it. It just shows that even well-resourced criminal operations can make disastrous errors. The intended target was never harmed. Chris, who had no connection to any of this, paid the ultimate price. Let me step back for a moment and talk about what this case means, not just as a crime story, but as something bigger. Kidnapping is extremely rare in Australia. Unlike countries where ransom kidnapping is more common, Australia's law enforcement systems are highly coordinated. The population is relatively small, and the chances of detection are very high. Criminologists have noted that this case is remarkable in several ways. The victim had no criminal connections whatsoever. The scale of the ransom demand was enormous, and the outcome, rather than releasing an innocent man, is something investigators will examine closely in court. For Chris's community, the Armenian community of Sydney, and broader circles who knew him, this case is a wound that will take a very long time to heal. His childhood friend said it best. It hurts inside, as if a dagger hits your heart. The investigation is still ongoing. Police expect more arrests. There are people still at large who were allegedly involved in this. And while 2 men are now in custody and facing murder charges, Chris's family is left to grieve a man who should never have been involved in any of this. He was asleep in his own home. He was 85 years old. He needed his daily medication, and someone knocked on the wrong door. This case is still developing. As of the time we filmed this, the 2 men are on remand awaiting trial. Police have confirmed they expect further arrests. The autopsy results have not been made fully public, and a full picture of exactly what happened inside that abandoned property in Dural, and in the days after, may not be known until a trial takes place. We will keep following this case. If you want to be updated when we cover the trial, make sure you are subscribed. But before we close, I want to take a moment to remember Chris Baghsarian the way the people who loved him remember him. Not as a victim, not as a headline, as the gentle grandfather from the Armenian quarter of Jerusalem, who emigrated to Australia and built a life there, who had children and grandchildren who loved him, who would walk into friends' homes without knocking, because that is just how it was done, who was, according to everyone, the kindest person they knew. Rest in peace, Chris.